senator for 13 counties. Los Angeles has, I think, 18 senators. And so we have no say in the government. And so we want to have a Republican form of government where everybody has a say. Now, if you look at the federal setup with the Senate, if each state, little tiny Delaware and most states, everybody has 2 senators. So everybody, the minorities have a say in the government. But in California, they changed the law. It wasn't right like that originally, where the senators the counties each had 1 senator. They changed that, so it goes by population. And so if you look at California, if you look at Los Angeles area, San Francisco Bay Area, and Sacramento, we have approximately 20 million people. You look at the rest of the state, all the rest of it, 20 million people. And so the large population areas with their huge numbers of people that tend to want to more government help. They are not as anxious to have their own land and for their own laws to try to take care of themselves. As more independent people, they vote Democrat. And so we have no say in the state at all. And so today I'm giving you copies of our declarations number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is that we are saying that Governor Newsom is under constitutional default for dereliction of duty, for leaving the state and not taking care of our things that have happened here in our state. Now, Kevin Kiley, who was very wonderful that our Republican assemblyman got elected to the Congress, and he gave a long talk to the Congress a couple of weeks ago about California and about how our governor has been dereliction of duty, has not taken care of our state, and he ordered the National Guard to go into the San Bernardino Mountains, where 18 people died. And so I'm going to leave you copies of Declaration 4 and 5. Declaration 4 is that he has derelicted his duty, and number 5 is that we want to indict him. He is not doing his job as a governor. And so I'm going to leave you copies of each one of these. I hope you read them. It's very important for our state. Thank you very much.
Just give them to Heather and she'll pass them out. Okay, next.
Good morning, board. Michelle Gallagher with Code Enforcement. I'm here to give you an update from our first recycling event, which was the shredded event on March 18th. We had 68 vehicles that attended, and the truck that was provided for us could hold a 7,400 pound load, and we actually filled it to 6,920. So we're very close to filling that truck up. I wanted to go ahead and read something that Lee Seuss said to us in the paper. She wanted to give kudos to the Amador County officials. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Amador County officials for their free shredding event of confidential documents that's sponsored on Saturday, March 18th. Secondly, my compliments for a well-organized event with location markers and serpentine layouts for getting in line to deposit the documents, a great community service. So our next recycling event will be for Pioneer and Pine Grove residents. That will be on April 29th at Pioneer Park from 9 to 3. And just for those that want to know when our next shredded event will be, it'll be January 20th, 2024 at the same location, same time, 9 to 12.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sorry. I did want to say one thing. I did want to thank Caltrans for sponsoring the event for the grant that we're receiving. So I wanted to make sure in the paper to let her know that Cal Grant is the one that helped us out to do that. So I wanted to thank them.
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, on to the approval of the agenda, except one item is was requested to be pulled, which would be 4C. So 4C is pulled.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of the items on the consent agenda.
No approval.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to our regular agenda. Discussion on item possible action relative to the allocation of funds for fiscal year 2023-2024 relative to the Amador County Chamber of Commerce and Amador Council of Tourism. For direction last year, the chamber amount for 23-24 sits at $40,000. Amador, Council of Tourism is budgeted for $101,500. Both organizations are budgeted for the amounts that they received in 2021-2022. Could the Amador Council of Tourism come on forward and have a conversation?
Hello, I'm Dave Warner, Executive Director for the Amador Council of Tourism. And Tracy's here as well. I'd like to give you handouts if you don't already have them.
Good morning, Tracy Berkner for the Amador Council of Tourism.
Good morning.
How's everybody today?
Real good.
I just want to, you've got a presentation in your inboxes, in your email inboxes, but as well physically. So just reviewing a couple of things and letting you know what kind of things we've been doing. Amador Council of Tourism has, in just the past 90 days, hired a social media expert to really boost our presence out there in social media, which is a huge driver. In 90 days, we have increased our engagement on Facebook 62%. We've reached, our reach has increased 84% on Facebook, and our Instagram engagement has increased 28%, and our reach has increased 23%. We do a cooperative Access Amador, which focuses on Thursdays. It offers special deals, discounts, and treats for people who are visiting us on Thursdays and bringing people to our region, not on Saturday and Sunday. We have a Answer is Amador campaign. We have been putting that out there nationwide with great success, and so we are continuing those programs. We brought in the Flynn Creek Circus last August. Over 50% of the tickets purchased were by people from out of Amador, and that brought increased business to our Amador businesses. And then our website has seen a uptick of 30% in unique visits, and all of these things have calculated up to over 105,000 unique visits to our Visit Amador website. So we're feeling very positive about the traction that we're getting. Visit Amador has hosted local, international, and social media influencers over this past year, and we will have those folks also returning. And we are strengthening and adding value to our partnerships with local attractions, community organizations, from Amador Arts to Kennedy Mine to the Kit Carson Mountain Men, as well as coming into alignment with Brad Barnard of the Chamber of Commerce to mutually support each other's organizations and goals. We typically would have for you today some nice metrics from the Dean Runyon reports that give they quantify the tourism impact on every county. Unfortunately, those statistics are not released until the end of April. So when they do become available, we'll be sure to forward that information to you, highlighting the successes we've had this past year. Dave Horner, our executive director, has worked very hard and long over the past year to learn how to be successful in operating a DMO, Destination Marketing Organization. And the strategic marketing plan that he has been working on developing for Visit Amador is full of achievable goals that will have a positive impact on the economy of Amador and tourism dollars spent. Visit Amador always has and will continue to provide a solid ROI to Amador County. We respectfully ask your continued support of Visit Amador for fiscal year 23-24 in the amount of $120,000. Do you have any questions?
Anything from the board?
Will you supply those numbers when they are released? Can you supply those or
Absolutely.
come back and present?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and nothing else? Anything else from the public? Okay, anybody from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll have the Chamber of Commerce come on up.
Yay.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning. Chairman Brown, members of the board, my name is Matt Toma here today in front of you as president of the Amador County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here today with Brad Bernard, our newly hired last year, thanks to your guys' funding, our executive director. Brad, along with Julie Lyman at our visitor center here in Jackson, has done some amazing work, increasing membership, handling calls, making county information bags and flyers, and all sorts of other tasks that help bring and support tourism and businesses here in the county. I'm also here with some of our board members, all of whom own, operate businesses here in the county and believe in the power of a healthy chamber for today's business and tourism climate. It's nice to be surrounded by a board with so much energy and enthusiasm to see this grow. Just to give you an idea, our chamber board includes Kevin Barnett, Sharon Lundgren, Rich Hoffman, Jim Geedy, Beth Barnard, Katie Dunn, Joey Geedy, Susan Manning, Cooper Steely, Paul Molinelli Jr., Tammy Crabtree, Ashley Carnicello, John Williamson, Lucy Hackett, Michael Curriton, Laura Ray, and Erica Simmons, all of who've been amazing so far this year in helping grow the chamber. I want to thank the board for considering our TOT funds request and the TOT support it's given us over the years, and especially last year. Without it, we wouldn't be able to offer some of the benefits a chamber has on tourist-related businesses and events here in the county. I also want to thank Supervisors Crew and Forrester for the representation at our monthly meetings. It's extremely beneficial to our board to have their input and direction from the government side of things to help us make decisions moving forward. I'd also want to thank the county, Chuck Eiley, for letting us use your upstairs boardroom for our monthly board meetings when the SBA is not using it, which we were a part of also helping get the word out on that. Chamber of Commerce has been serving Amador County for literally decades and strives to be an advocate for business, tourism, and to help stimulate a vibrant economy, retaining jobs, and helping to create strong communities. Your Amador County Chamber of Commerce offers ways for tourists to find our local tourist sites, hotels, businesses, and organizations to better plan their time here in the county. The Chamber of Commerce is a nationally known brand that tourists look for. Our staff visitor center provides colorful guides for each city in Amador County. These brochures, along with others, are given out to groups and individuals wanting to know what's happening in Amador County and where to spend their tourist dollars. Our monthly mixers, which many are hosted by some of the county's larger tourist sites and hotels like the Kennedy Mine, Night Foundry, a reminder of which you are all invited to the mixer tomorrow night at the Night Foundry at 5:30 p.m. I'd love to see all your faces there, just to see how popular these mixers are getting. Preston Castle and the Amador Flower Farm, to name a few. Attendance in these mixers has grown 30 to 40% just recently in this year alone. Our request to the board this year would be for the same $80,000 in TOT funds that was graciously granted by this board last year. With that money, we were able to hire an executive director and provide additional outreach to our businesses and tourists wishing to visit Amador County and to help build our business community. We are requesting this money to continue to build on what we started with last year's funding. Thank you, and ensure Amador County has a strong chamber to support future years of growth. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to request these funds, and thank you again so much for your support over the years. The Chamber of Commerce is striving to support our local businesses and to promote growth and excitement for the businesses and tourism industry, and to respond to the needs of tourists that come to or want to come to our county. This all takes commitments from our board, staff, members, sponsors, community partners, and you, the Board of Supervisors. Tourism is a big part of everything that makes Amador County what it is. Our rich history, beautiful scenery, and creativity attract tourists from all over, and it's our job as a Chamber of Commerce to serve them well while supporting each other. The Chamber is committed to doing just that. Thank you for your time, and with that, I'd like to formally introduce Brad Bernard, our Executive Director, and he can give you a few more details on what the Chamber's been up to and what we plan on doing.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
For the most part, Matt's covered everything pretty well. However, we've got a couple programs that are working on. I believe you all have packets that should have some information in there, such as, great. Outlining some of the things, we've more than doubled our membership since August. I mean, it's coming along very, very well. I foresee it to continue in the same path in the next year. And the tourism is just automatic. I mean, it's 74% of the phone calls that we get logged are for tourism-related questions, be it staying overnight, what wineries, hotels, just sightseeing. And with that in mind, one of the things that we looked into, and we've come up with a program called Be a Tourist in Your Hometown. And this will be something where we focus on a particular tourism spot and then highlight businesses and sightseeing and such in the community. In your packets, you'll see that one of the examples would be that the Night Foundry in Sutter Creek, tasting wine at Scott Harvey in the tasting room, shopping, dining at Sutter Hotel, strolling the streets. Same thing, Preston Castle down in Ione. So we're trying to spread this out throughout the county. And we've got this whole plan going into where we're going to market it, and hopefully this generates even more tourism within the county, even from the locals, because when was the last time you were in some of these places? You kind of look back and you go, geez, I live here and I haven't been over that place in quite a while. So we've got a scholarship program that we're working now. Any tips that come into the bar and such, they're not tips for us. They are a tuition incentive program for scholarships. Says it's right on the bottle, so we stay with the same vein of it. But we're able to give out 3 scholarships this year to each of the high schools. And I think that's a real plus. It didn't cost us a dime. It's just something that we're able to promote, to try and, again, anything we can do to promote the county. Again, the networking mixers, I think that Matt covered that pretty well. They've really grown. We've got several, most of them, in fact, are hosted with more than one host. If you're looking at, for example, the one tomorrow night, it's Night Foundry, Coffee Tree, Wing It on Wheels, and Kneading Dough Bakery as well. So there's several people that have gotten together to try and do the mixers. by default, Chamber of Commerce is a tourism industry. It is a business that's set up to bring tourism into this county and nurture it while it's in the county and make the most for the businesses. So in looking for the tourism money, it goes right back out. We printed materials, we hand out to people. Doesn't happen for free. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Well, yeah, I would have one. I was talking to one of the other supervisors who, we were lamenting the fact that a lot of people think it's the Jackson Chamber or some version of that, and that he has offered to help the staff if they wanted to go to another town that he's integral in, and he'd walk Main Street with them. And I think if there's anything you might have not really considered too much, might be a growth.
It's very much
Position.
something on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's been one of the biggest things is trying to let people know, even though we're situated in Jackson, but that doesn't mean that, it's 605 square miles, right?
Yeah.
So the county, it's big, it's a vast area to try and cover. And if you talk to us, any one of us be it on the board or in the chamber office, we're going to say county, 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 it keeps coming up. It's one of those big focuses. And if you look at the tourism plan that we've got laid out, it's to try and draw people to the other areas, not just Jackson. My gosh, it's easy to just say, okay, let's just sit here and it's comfortable right here. It's throughout the county. So the mixers that we've got with Preston Castle and the Night Foundry and these, trying to draw them outside. Amador Flower Farm, just pulling out as far as we can. Volcano, we've got the theater company and Volcano Telephone. So it's working out inside in those areas. And yes, walking the streets and trying to I gotta be, again, as truthful as I can be. It was a lot of work just trying to get to where I could figure things out since August. And not trying to slap anybody, but I think I've got my feet on the ground now. And so now we're taking the next steps. We got to this level and I think we can start really running instead of just trying to stand up.
Yeah, one thing we're noticing just in our new businesses that we're getting and tourist-related businesses that we're getting members are they're not just Jackson businesses. They're from Plymouth, they're from Ione, they're from the upcountry. They're really, and our mixers are reflecting that also. People that are wanting to have mixers bring these people together. Functions, with related groups and stuff like that, bringing all these organizations from all over the county to really just spread it around, and definitely not just Jackson related for sure.
And by the way, one of the supervisors that's talked about taking a walk, I've been trying to get in touch with him for a little bit. We're gonna work it out.
He's here today.
I know.
You said you did 3 scholarships?
Pardon?
You did 3 scholarships from the
Yes.
tips? Didn't it show up in your budget for some reason?
Well, it's money that just comes in and goes right out. It's actually earmarked when it comes in from the get-go,
Never shows up
right
in the
out.
budget then? Okay.
Yeah, so it's not really us funding it. We're just helping to offer it. And then we're actually going to utilize the Amador Community Foundation to help make more out of it.
Yeah. One thing we brought up before is, I think the board has, I know in the past, there's probably some, misgivings between the chamber and ACT, but at some point, it seemed logical, maybe if they could kind of merge things together, you'd think, might help the expenses.
We're open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you maybe have a little bit different focus, but if you focus the county and the focus is tourism, I do like the chamber because I know years back we took a trip across country and one of the places you'd go to was Chamber of Commerce. Everybody knows what it is. So I understand.
That's a great statement in itself. That's probably one of the biggest things that when the phone rings and it says tourism calls, there are times when they'll just flat out, hey, we're gonna make it run out to Amador County and so we're looking for this. And they call the Chamber of Commerce because it's the nameplate that's nationally known.
Yeah. And something else, I see, ACT wants more than is budgeted, and you folks want more than is budgeted. I see your membership's coming up quite a bit, and you got more sponsors, so I think that might be bringing in a fair amount more money for the chamber. One problem I have is I drive the roads, and we got a road problem. Had it for quite a while, and it's gotten, this year, really brought it front and center. It was there, but now you can't avoid it. So that's kind of why I'm looking at not wanting to grant more money than what's in the budget overall, so. Not saying I dislike either ACT or the chamber. It's just, we need money for roads.
The other thought there is to promote, to keep, to invest in the tourism of this county that it has to offer, to keep those tax dollars coming in, to try to fund, things like that also.
Well, that's true, but I've had people say, hey, you're bringing all these tourists, and what do they do for the roads?
Right. They pay gas tax dollars.
Sure.
And I did see you got a 3 or 4 year program to get your ask down as your membership grows.
Absolutely, correct.
Yeah.
That's always been the goal.
I mean, we said we gave you a 1 year shot and thought that the world would just turn around, and
Yeah,
it took you August to find a director, so.
correct.
But I do like the plan that you are not here just with your hand out. You got a plan to reduce the general or the TOT draw, so.
Supervisor Forster? Supervisor Axe?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, anything from the public? Okay, back to the board.
Zoomers, any Zoomers?
Mr. Riley, you want to go over our budgeted amounts? We had the chamber at what, 40?
We have the chamber at 40 and the ACT at 101.5, which is the return to the previous 2 years ago. That was the previous amounts.
You have on the transient occupancy tax dollars, do you know where we're at there?
The total amount, I'm not sure. It's gone up significantly, but those are not, there seems to be a lot of confusion on that. We are not bound. That's a general tax. So those are general fund dollars.
Well, we're not bound, but there was a vote that the board asked people to take from going from 6% to 10%.
Correct.
And the commitment was to use that 4% for this purpose.
Right. And if we did that, it would be a lot more than the 120 they're asking for.
But for tourism, the 4%.
For ACT, yes. The board had frozen it several years ago. I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago at 101.5, just the amount that it was at that year. And we've kept it steady rather than increasing it as TOT has gone up.
So it's not 4% now,
No, it's not. It's not the 4%.
or the full, okay.
Yeah. When the Measure Q brought the TOT from 6% to 10%, so that additional 4% the county had pledged unofficially, because it was not a special tax, which would have required a 2/3 vote. It was just a general tax, which required 50%, but the board had pledged it, the increase in funds to ACT.
And my point is, if we ask the public to vote for something and we pledge to use it for these kinds of purposes, then I never want to go back and ask the public to support that again if we don't live up to our pledge.
Probably be nice to have what Measure Q said, because that's what the public probably saw.
It was just increase from 6 to 10% in the TOT tax. That's all it said. It didn't say anything about pledging the money.
The pledge was from the board,
The
not.
pledge was from the board,
Right.
not on the ballot.
And
You
yet
want
a
to go
board
back and
can't-
listen to the tapes. I'm sure their board made that intent loud and clear.
But the board can't encumber another board, isn't that correct?
That's correct. There's no legal obligation to do it.
Yeah, so to stand on that, and we're not even honoring the 4% now. It's been changed with the freeze.
Well, maybe we need to.
Maybe we do,
Yeah, no, it's,
but let's,
I'm just trying to remember who said what, if it's a full board, a board member. It's one thing, if the full board said that, hey, it's, some of these things change, but if he said that, you want to honor it. I can see that too, so.
Well, do we have any suggestions of which way we want to go?
well, could I address this is probably the 9th time that this has come up, the inequity between what one group gets and what another group gets, that if we could somehow work towards getting that, and I'm not denigrating what ACT does, if they've got their money and you pledge that, but I think the chamber is making a turnaround, and they bring in more sales tax, and they have a plan to not come here every year asking for 80,000. I thought we maybe were a little Pollyanna, thinking in 1 year that 80 grand would fix their problem. So what I would do, and I've stated this, and if there's whatever the number is, if it's 160 total for tourism dollars, split it right in half. But I can see that there's resistance to doing that, so we give ACT 1015, and that's been, and we gave the chamber 80. They want 120, and 80 is 200. If we go, figuring we gotta save some for roads, go to 160 and give 100 to ACT and 60 to the chamber, I think would be a compromise from both positions.
So is that your motion?
No. Yeah, repeat that again, if you don't mind.
All right, well, there's, ACT's here looking for 120, I'm just using round figures, and 80 for the chambers, 200,000 out of TOT. Realizing the road issues, that we're budgeted 141.5, so I was trying to hit somewhere in the middle, have 100 for ACT and 60 for the chamber for this year's funding.
We have the impartial analysis for Measure Q, if you want us to read that.
Sure.
So, I won't read the whole thing, but the part of the question that was asked, it says, Measure Q is a general tax, which means that the proceeds received from the tax can be placed in the general fund for expenditures in accordance with the adopted county budget. The additional revenue generated could fund general services, including parks, law enforcement services, and maintenance of roads and other public property as determined by the Board of Supervisors. However, historically, most of the funds raised by this hotel tax have been used for tourism promotion in the county. This hotel tax will be permanent. It will be collected until it is repealed by the voters. So that was in the impartial statement that went with the ballot measure. So it sort of does both. It makes it clear that it's a general tax. It can be used for any purpose, including roads and county services, but what the historical use has been.
Well, that's part of the story. The other part of the story is you'd almost have to go back and listen to the tape of the meeting to hear the discussion and the assurances that were made.
My motion gives the 1015 assurance to ACT.
So we don't know what the additional 4% TOT amounts to this year, roughly?
No, I've asked for that number, but I don't have it yet.
Okay. Do you think that that would be imminent?
I hope so.
Okay.
We've kind of seen the direction we're going in. We do have some numbers at least on the board, but it'd be nice to know that figure to make
Well,
this
it's
decision.
significantly higher than what this expenditure is though, right, Chad?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The 4% is significantly higher than this 160,000.
It'd be higher than the 120. It might be about 160.
Yeah.
Would be my estimate.
That's the additional 4%, correct?
Right, the additional, so it's 40% of all the TOT taken in.
Well, we have a motion on the, before us.
I'll second it, but I'd like Mr. Toma to come back up, or Mr. Bernard, whoever can answer the question on the budget.
We have 390,000 in the budget for total TOT. So,
Would that, my question is, would that 60,000 in your estimation allow you to achieve what goals you've laid out?
I'd say off the top of my head, without crunching the numbers, probably not. No, the 80,000 was in there as a specific request based on what we did last year with the money, and knowing what those expenditures were, knowing where our membership is, what it's grown to has definitely helped. But to try to continue that, and also just blatantly just saying how much, what I've learned over the last year, Julie, everybody on the board, how much tourist-related stuff the chamber does. Not just a business, community here type of thing. Most of our businesses are tourist-related businesses. The phone calls, the bags, the brochures, the groups. We've got a car show coming in that's gonna bring hundreds of people to this county, getting ready for those people, all that kind of stuff. The work that's involved with that, I would say, no, the 60 is probably not gonna do it. Yeah.
But isn't your membership going up substantially?
It is, yeah, it is.
We did lower the rates for the membership.
Which helped,
Okay, so I was crunching the numbers, and I thought you'd be up another additional, between sponsors and membership, you might be up another 30,000, but
No.
lowered your rates, you're probably not gonna.
Lowered some of the rates, yeah. And some of the mom and pop shops are struggling. I mean, they're looking at rents and everything else going up, and they're struggling. So one of the things we did in particular was for the lower number membership, we reduced the cost, and it went right up the line. I think the top tier stayed the same, but everything else, all of them went down $25, $50 a membership. So.
No, what you said is true. I mean, we're seeing some pretty massive inflation, and people are feeling the financial crunch.
Yeah, rents are going up, utility bills are going up, everything's going up. So we were trying to maintain and still, get a worth to our clients and our customers, basically.
I thought going green was supposed to lower all those costs.
So, Matt, and Brad, I guess the long-term projection is that you won't need the same ask in the future?
I don't think so.
That's the goal. If we can continue our membership growth, basically, just a long story short here, once we went through a complete year last year of adjusting how we're charging, when we're charging our members, got a clean bill of who we actually had for members. We were down to about 124. We're now, since August, since Brad, Julie been working their tails off, we're up to about 260, and it's growing. So that number was a lot less than what we originally thought, but now we've got a grasp on that. But yeah, looking forward, 80 for this year, and then if we can continue to grow our membership, then yeah, that ask should be coming down.
So you think it would come down to the 40 range or the 60 range?
I'll be honest with you, Frank, you're a business guy. I mean, I'm not sure, without getting membership numbers back in the probably 500s or 600s,
Okay.
which could be a few years from now. Yeah, I'm not sure it would ever quite get back to that, but we keep picking up sponsors, adding to our membership, so all that definitely helps. Yeah, all that definitely helps.
If I may, even the sponsors are looking, they want to see why they should be a sponsor. What's the benefit for them, for the community? We just picked up one that's not even in our county. And again, I mean, they're looking at the mixers as one of their big go-tos. So these events that we're trying to put on that, networking, it's not just a mixer, it's a networking mixer. So these programs that we've got trying to implement, trying to bring people in, the car show, the hometown tourism, they all saw this as a really positive thing. So the members, the sponsorships, I think they can grow, but at the same time, they're not jumping up and running up and handing us money to be a sponsor yet. I think as things continue to, performance is gonna be the trick. When they see things happening and they get something they can look at and go, okay, there's a benchmark.
Okay, Supervisor Crew. Do you want to, Supervisor Neto?
Yeah, one thing I'll say, I'm having a little problem here because we need money for roads, but I think there's some, as I recall, it's kind of trying to remember back what Supervisor Forrester said. I think there was, I don't remember if it's the full board, some of the board, it was put out there as far as, the additional money was going to be supporting like tourism. Fixing roads is probably part of it, but, I think there was some talk like what he's saying as far as when that was going around, so. Yeah, I do have, I'm struggling a little bit with it.
Well, 40% of your 390,000 is about 156,000, so that's 160. So you're right on. So 160 respectively between the two organizations is reasonable. Perhaps there's something that maybe the chamber can do in addition if they want to seek additional funding. Maybe they can do that, to be determined.
Well, we had talked about, little off subject, if we were gonna have a drive for sales tax for roads, we need a champion. And I thought the chamber would be, if they get to 400 members and they would support it, would be, because I think we had Supervisor Forster, was it the Sierra Business Council was gonna,
It was the Amador business.
Amador, I couldn't remember the name, and they kind of fizzled right in the middle of the campaign. And we need a champion because we can only educate like any tax bill. So maybe if we were gonna, we could give them another 20 grand if they were willing to be the champions, if that comes to fruition,
I don't know if I'd,
or whatever.
yeah, maybe we could talk about,
I'm just talking now, but what's that? Yeah.
I wouldn't condition it, but I would just say we're gonna need probably multiple champions out there to get behind an effort
Sure.
like that.
that's true. No, I do like that thought, because it's, people want the roads fixed, and they say go after grants, and there's some grants out there, but a lot of the grants you'll find have, you gotta put in, NEV lanes, or it doesn't always work for the county, and the roads need a horrible amount of money. It's, so that is food for thought, what you brought up.
Not just Amador County, though. When I see a stake bed truck on the interstate in Arizona with a full pallet load of cold patch, that's pretty bad.
Oh, no, it's not just here. I drive, El Dorado a lot, Calaveras, and Calaveras has some better roads than they used to have, but I think they also paid for it with the Butte fire when they got burned out and got a PG&E settlement, so I'd just soon, if that's the case, I'd rather have a little bit rougher roads and still have our homes and our landscape.
Okay, well, right now, we still have a motion on the floor of,
I'll second that motion.
no, Supervisor Forster already seconded it.
Oh.
So do we want to call for a vote?
Would you want to modify your motion on the chamber to increase that amount? And hearing from them that probably will not allow them to achieve their goals.
Sure, I would do that. Willing to take a chance on them, go 80 and 101.5,
Okay.
Chamber and ACT. We'd be a little over the 4% that way.
Are you modifying your second?
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
And that might give them a little more money to maybe expand their horizons.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Kind of the other, one thing, kind of the other way you need to look at it is the tourism dollars go into these organizations, and it brings a lot of people into the county, which increases the tax revenue in all areas, incorporated and unincorporated. So.
Yeah, and if there's a self-help tax, those tourists can contribute toward it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we got it.
Okay, calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Now we're on to 4B, Planning Department. File a determination of the board's chair's approval of temporary waivers to allow Jackson Valley Quarry to operate outside their authorized hours and days of operation during an emergency as allowed by the Curry's use permit condition of approval. The additional hours are during the weekends, starting April 1st through April 15th, 2023, with the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just for everybody's notification, this officially came through the state via Reed. It was not Reed requesting this. This was the state requesting this approval.
Correct. Good morning, Chuck Beatty with the Planning Department. So I guess the ongoing storms has created yet another request for Jackson Valley Quarry, this one coming from the State Department of Water Resources, for them to stay open outside of their normal operating hours, which are Monday through Friday from 6 to 6, to be open on the weekends, April 1st through the 15th from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Per the conditions of approval. Chairman Brown granted that waiver on March 31st, and it's now before the board for basically you ratify the chair's waiver.
Okay. Anything from the board? Questions from the board?
You know, did they operate on Easter Day?
I don't think anybody knows.
Bill would probably know.
Bill would know. Right. They said they weren't going to operate Sundays, but they wanted the option just in case the state, was requesting it.
If Bill doesn't know, it must not have been too bad if they did operate then. I said, if you don't know if they did operate on Easter Day, it must not have been too bad if you didn't notice. Okay.
Okay. Okay, open for the public. Bill?
I could be disturbed on weekends if they start paying into the roads fund. This quarry causes tremendous amount of damage. All you have to do is look at my property line down through Martin Lane to Lower Jackson Valley Road. There's 5 quarries, but this one contributes the most to the destruction of these roads. Grant the emergency, don't worry about it, make them start paying into the road fund. It's as simple as that. Say, that's it, we've had it, you are now going to start paying into the roads fund. Help defray some of the cost that is needed. You say you need a 0.5-cent sales tax. We've been over this before. I say hold a public meeting, let's talk about it. But it would be helpful that you could tell the public, you know what? These quarries who contribute a lot to the destruction of our roads are now paying into the roads fund.
You know, Bill,
Thank you.
I agree with you on that. And I've been telling some of these aggregate companies that are wanting to do projects, because that's something I've been hearing from people, just what you're saying. Yeah. And I'm saying, in the board, the county can't condition approval on them paying into a road fund or yada, yada, yada. But what the county can say, and I have told them, I says, I've looked at your projects, and one concern I have is I'm hearing from people saying just what you're saying. Yeah. Why do we want to approve these use permits or expanded use permits? What's in it for the citizens of the county? And I've told them, I said, and people said they'd like to see some money go towards roads. And I says, is that a condition we can require? I says, no. But is that something that makes it appealing to a county on the approval process? People saying, yeah, we like that quarry, we like this aggregate expansion. And I says, it's something I've looked at. So I agree with what you're saying.
Unfortunately, it's probably a change in state law that we need to do too, because the point of sale, when the rock gets moved, the point of sale is where the rock's delivered to. I agree, voluntary would be good, but there aren't too many businesses that are going to voluntarily say, I'll pay more money to you.
Well, that's true, Richard, but the thing is too, is we're looking at giving them permitting approvals. And if people are saying, hey, what are we getting for roads? We're getting nothing. And if the public doesn't like an approval and they don't support it, why should the board support it? I'm not saying necessarily on these temporary waivers. These are emergencies. I get it, got no problem. I'm talking long-term use permits. They want to come in, they change their use permits. Years ago, I talked to a fellow from George Reed. I can't remember his name. He seemed okay. So that's a fairly standard not unusual practice for aggregate companies to pay so much a ton for rock removed.
Could you put that in a use permit to require them to pay so much per ton?
I think this did come up. I'm not sure you can condition it that way. It's
can't-
been years. It's been a while since we've looked at it, but I'm not sure you can charge a company for using the roads, for county roads that are open to the public.
Yeah, we looked into it quite a while back, and I think that was true, but you just express your very valid concerns when they come in for the use permit, and if they want to offer that to address some of those valid concerns, you can say, thank you very much.
Can it be like a mitigation fee? You know, the way we charge impact fees?
Well, we don't charge impact fees for use permit, like, impact fees are, I mean, so yes and no, you can charge impact fees, but there's no impact fee for, the only impact fees we charge are single-family homes, and that's the one-time.
And an impact.
And it's
fee
not
would
an
be for the
ongoing
growth.
fee. It's not an ongoing fee,
Right.
it's a one-time fee.
It's a one-time fee.
It's not an annual
I
fee.
mean, can we do something along those lines? Can we ask for, instead of per ton of gravel, you know, just an annual impact?
Well, like I said, my recollection is no,
No.
but it's been a while since we've approved
Yeah.
a use permit for a aggregate facility.
And I've talked to some of the proponents, and they said, well, one concern they'd have is, you know, is everybody else doing it, which I understand that. But that's
Why are you picking on me, kind of thing?
yeah. And it's something, I think, you know, if the county had those concerns from the public saying, hey, what about this? And we relay those concerns to the project proponents. You know, I like George Reed's operation. I think they run a very good operation, so this is not aimed at them. It's just a general 10,000-foot look at it.
You're not their neighbor, Brian.
Yeah, but
I am.
I understand that, Bill. And you know, Bill, sometime, I mean, if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to come down to your house, I don't like champagne, but maybe a glass of wine, and we could listen to their operations.
I have a wine cellar. I'll invite you to that.
That's a deal.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, back to the board. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the board chair's temporary waiver.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, anybody opposed? Okay. 4C has been pulled on to 4D.
Well, just one more thing about the Corey thing before we go away from that. I think with the snowpack we have right now, we might see some more of these come before the board, because if we don't have a cold spring, early summer, you're gonna have some pretty massive flooding, I think, down in the Central Valley.
Yeah, that was it was the state that requested this. It was interesting phone calls.
Well, thank you.
Okay. 4D, General Services Administration, ITB 23-03, Amador County Sheriff's Roof Replacement.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Hopkins, General Services Director. So we put this on the agenda to talk to you about it because the cost of this roof is going to go up, so we wanted to let you know about that. We do have the funding in the Capital Improvement Fund to cover any additional costs once we get it out to bid. Also, the board needs to approve, pursuant to Public Contracts Code, the plans and specs. We don't have plans for this, though, just specifications. The plans or the documents show that it's a 21,000 square foot roof. There's a mandatory walkthrough for that, but it's a fairly simple, it's a complex job, but it's simple in its nature as the application of putting the roof back on. So it's just really questions for you, if you have any questions, and then to make those recommendations to approve the work and to let this work go out to bid.
You just talked about the timing of this, that it's critical to get it done now while there's another project going on, but before the jail reconstruction, jail addition occurs.
So right now, we have the demising wall and ADA improvements going on. I think that project's about 2.5 months into its schedule. We're gonna put this out to bid, get this done, hopefully get the roof on before the jail project goes out. So that's why timing is of the essence here. So we're cramming a lot of things into the jail right now toward that property to get done. But yes, it's important to get it done.
Can those two projects be done concurrently together?
Yes.
Without causing problems for one or the other?
I don't think it's gonna cause problems for one or the other contractors. It's gonna cause a little heartburn for 35 days for the sheriff's office. But they know that, they're aware of it. Mark and I talked to the sheriff just yesterday, I believe it was.
How's it gonna be affecting them?
Parking. But that's nothing compared to when we do the jail expansion project. Their parking is gonna be affected then too. And that's an 18-month project. This is 35 days.
But it's not operational, it's just parking them.
It's parking and some operations, yeah, it's gonna affect their operations.
Roof is gonna
It did before when we did the 03 addition. It affected their operations as far as visiting. It affected their parking, which affects their operations too, so, and affects the public. But I remind people when it comes to parking, go downtown somewhere. You park blocks away and have to walk to where you get. So while I understand it's an inconvenience, it's just that, an inconvenience.
But it's not operational, it is just people getting in and out of the building. Their operation should be, fine.
It should be. It affects visiting sometimes, but
Right.
yes, their operations as far as safety, public safety.
Safety is all right.
Is this, yes.
Okay.
I got one question. If we're to do this new roof, when you go do the addition, is there any likelihood they can damage the new roof, or is it gonna be a problem?
It's not a problem. They are separate and distinct projects. If you remember, we had to have that 5 to 15-foot barrier. The state would not allow us to roll.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna be, they'll still won't be tromping that roof a lot, will they?
No. And that roof's, I think, it's about 39 years old. So Mark has written into it to have what we call a non-dollar limit warranty. So that's 20-year warranty for labor and parts if there's any failure to the roof. But typically a TPO roof, those thermoplastic polyolefin roofs are good for 20 years, if not 30. This one went 39, but now is in big trouble, so we got to replace.
We're doing, I didn't catch that, but, so we're using the plastic material on the roof then?
A TPO roofing, yes, it's used in about 40% of all commercial buildings throughout the country. Yeah, it's a pretty solid roof. It's got really good properties with UV, that resistance to it.
Is our staff gonna be?
I'm surprised the
available, capable to put the patches on?
Usually we farm that out because of the material. It requires especially patching. As I was watching a video just last night on this, and it requires a gun. It's a roller and a heat gun with mastic that gets applied to it. Over the time, staff has repaired that roof from time to time or patched it. Sometimes patched it not correctly. Staff is in the older days when we had other folks here, but they know what to do if they need to take care of a minor.
I've dealt with those type of roofs quite a bit in my life, so I'm just.
If I could, yes. I also added 2 hours of mandatory training that the awarded contractor has to give maintenance staff of how to repair the roofing. But there's 20-year no dollar limit warranty that we're asking for, so we shouldn't have to do anything. It should be the manufacturer or the contractor.
Oh, it's always the another 10 years that you worry about and you go with.
Absolutely, but we are getting the training. I did add the training into the specs.
I don't think you'll have to worry about it.
I know.
Didn't we replace that HVAC system not that long ago up there, I think?
We did. And so the specifications require that they deal with all electrical, gas, HVAC, because they are going to have to, they may have to crane some of that stuff to pick it up to get it off the platforms and to work. So we anticipate that. Again, it's 35 days, so it's not too terribly long.
Okay.
But we got to get it done.
Find it interesting, the rest of us are watching the news or Andy Griffith or something, you're watching how to put on a roof correctly. Videos at night, so.
YouTube.
Well, it caught my attention because when I quizzed Mark about it, the roof is a pan deck with lightweight concrete put on it. I'm used to, a long time ago, used to an insulation fabric and then either a wafer board or gyp board and then the TPO over the top of that. Mark has verified that we don't have that the insulation that was used is they poured that lightweight concrete, the gyp board goes down, then the TPO on top of that. So, yeah, we got that all ironed out.
But you did say you probably will have to have a crane in to lift off the, air conditioner units or?
Yeah.
To have the roof put down correctly. So is that going to cause an interruption in services at the jail where they'll have to find accommodation?
No, the accommodation is we can't be down in any one area more than 2 hours.
Okay.
So the roofers understand that.
Okay, very good.
Wow.
Okay.
Get with it.
So they
Any other
pick
question?
up the unit, fix underneath, put it right back down?
Right. I mean, it's, yeah. Well, and the other thing that they can do is lift it. They can create some other accommodations if they needed to extend the ductwork temporarily where they worked around it. There's things they can do to get that cooling, because we're going to be doing this in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions?
Wouldn't want to inconvenience the guests.
Okay.
I like to give them 8 hours to work. You know, a question on that, John. Could you make that 2-hour time frame a little longer, or is it state law?
No, we're comfortable with that, and I think it's standard in the industry. So I'm comfortable with leaving it there.
I don't know if you made it longer, if you might get cheaper bids.
I don't think it's going to affect it because they're going to go unit by unit.
Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay.
One more question. Was this publicly put out to bid?
No, so with every project, you guys need to approve plans and specs before we let it out to bid. Okay. So today you're going to approve the specs and say, yes, carry forward. And yes, we're okay with, if it ends up being 450 or 500, we've got the funding and capital improvement to do that. But we got to get it done. The pictures I showed you that Mark took, I don't know if you saw all the little black dots, but that's everywhere where it's leaking. So it's starting to leak bad.
Where did the estimates come from then?
Mark worked with one particular company that does this on a routine basis. That's where the estimates came from. But they also know that it has to go out to bid.
Okay, so this company wouldn't have an advantage because of that?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the general specifications and authorize staff to work out the bid.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Thank you, I think.
Opposed? Okay. Unanimous vote on to review and possible approval of March 28th Board of Supervisor meeting minutes.
I have one very minor correction. That's it. So
Move to approve with that correction.
Second.
I've got a correction, a couple corrections, minor.
Okay.
With minor corrections.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We will go on break till 10:30 for the public hearing.
We could,
Oh. Yeah,
we could resume closed session if you'd like.
say, closed session or? Okay. We're going to go into closed session. Okay, we're back in session. We just came out of closed session again, and we worked on 2B, and it was voted and approved. And now we will go on to public hearings. 5A, Planning Department, consideration of Planning Commission's recommendation to approve zoning ordinance amendment ZOA 2212-3 regarding a proposal amendment to County Code Chapter 19.48.140 to establish regulations for detached room units to be used as overnight lodging for wineries.
Morning again, Chuck Beatty with the Planning Department.
Morning, kind sir.
Late last year, the board adopted a resolution of intent that directed staff and the Planning Commission to develop an ordinance that would allow these detached room units to be used similar to a traditional bed and breakfast, except each room unit is then it's its own separate entity. The matter was reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee and the county's Land Use Committee, Supervisors, Forester, and Axe. And we developed 11 conditions to where these room units could be used with a winery, and that was the board's direction, that we start just with licensed bonded wineries first. So it's sort of a pilot project, and that you could expand this going forward if you feel that it's necessary. So the conditions are the room each. And this applies to a bed and breakfast as well, but the detached units would require a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission. The parcel has to include a licensed bonded winery. The units have to be within a 1 acre area, all 5 of them. The minimum parcel size is 20 acres. They have to meet a 100-foot setback. They can only provide short-term lodging, which is 30 days or less. Only breakfast can be served to the guests only, and not to the general public. A minimum of 1 off-street parking is provided for each unit. Owner or manager has to occupy the property, which could be in the primary or an accessory dwelling unit. The detached room units are required to comply with the building code and environmental health requirements, and you can have a maximum of 5 units up to 350 square feet each per project. That mirrors the bed and breakfast language, which is 5 rooms that can be rented per parcel.
Is that 5 including 1 for the resident or representative of the owner, or?
5 rented rooms. The manager or owner has to either occupy the primary dwelling or an accessory dwelling unit.
So they could have another one for that representative then?
But it would be a dwelling with a kitchen. So it won't be one of these detached room units that do not have kitchens.
As we're looking at this, could, we have a primary residence on a specific site that was from this one. Could an ADU plus these 5 be put on there?
Yes. And the ADU then could be used as the manager's quarters.
Okay.
Question, it talks about the owner or manager shall be on the property. What about if you have like 2 parcels of land adjoining, and say you want to put the dwelling, the little units, the 5 units on this parcel, and the manager owner's property is on the adjoining property as far as their residence?
Probably not, because these are all accessory units. They have to be accessory to something, and that would be the primary dwelling.
Or an accessory, one of the accessory units, just the 6th one would have to be on that parcel, where the other 5 are.
But you still have to have the primary residence there in order to have the accessory unit, and then to have, or these units, either one.
It doesn't say that. It says the owner or manager shall be required to occupy the property in a primary or accessory dwelling unit.
But you can't have the accessory dwelling unit unless you have the primary dwelling unit. It's sort of implied, but we can make that very clear if we need to in the language. It's not a substantial change.
I would think, because when I'm looking at some of these, you may have it where the primary dwelling is on a property, and 50 feet away is where you want to have those accessory dwelling units, separate parcel. So it's meeting the intent of the what we're trying to do, but what you're saying wouldn't meet the intent of the law.
Correct.
Letter of the law.
Correct.
Is there an allowance we can make for that?
Could they
Yeah,
ask
they
for
could
a
merge the
variance?
properties.
In order to have these units or an accessory dwelling unit, you're gonna have to have the primary dwelling unit on the same property. I don't see a workaround for that unless they merge the parcels, and we generally advise people not to do that, because there's no guarantee you can get those unmerged in the future. But that could be somebody's workaround if they had multiple parcels, and one of them did not have a primary dwelling.
Oh, so you could just put something in there, it has to be either on that parcel or an adjoining parcel?
It says
Be the same parcel.
shall be required to occupy the property. I would think the interpretation would be that parcel or that 20 acre or however big it is.
Right.
Because if they were on separate parcels, they could sell the one parcel, you know, that either has.
Then they'd
these-
lose that right, I would think.
Well, then what are they gonna do with the other units at that point? You know, they could sell either parcel.
No, I thought about that, yeah. Then at that point, it'd no longer be a permitted use.
Oh, the
Unless
intent was.
they had somebody stay on that, one of the units on that now separate parcel.
I don't think that would work. I mean, this is sort of an alternative to a bed and breakfast, which is the house with rooms that you rent. So instead of a bed and breakfast with rooms inside, you have a single-family residence with detached rooms on the property.
Okay.
So you have to have, like the planning director was stating, you have to have the primary residence on the property, because
Okay.
these are detached rooms to the primary resident.
And the idea was to function similar to a bed and breakfast where that primary residence is there.
Okay.
Chuck, you had mentioned one of the condition 2, existing licensed and bonded winery. That's where we wanted to start.
Right.
That's all, and you mentioned it's kind of a pilot. So with a conditional use permit, I mean, if this thing blows up and people say it wasn't such a good idea, then it could be withdrawn, right, in the future?
Certainly.
The only objection letter was from Maryland Hoops, is that correct?
That's correct.
I like Maryland, but I really think this helps solve some of the problems rather than creating problems. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of an extension of the bed and breakfast, and so they would have the ability to do that today. Actually, on any of those properties, any property, it wouldn't have to necessarily be a winery, but, so I'm not certain that a lot of people are gonna do this.
And I do like what Richard brought up, you know, it's a conditional use permit. If there's a problem, you can say, hey, you know what, this is going away.
No, you have two options. You have the option to deal with that use permit individually, or you have the option to change the ordinance, which, you know, those that are already existing in compliance would have to stay, but by doing away with the ordinance, then you said no more in the future.
Right, you wouldn't get any that you had permitted as long as they continued to operate under the terms of their approved use permit would stay. But you could undo the ordinance so there wouldn't be any more.
Any other questions? Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Okay. Supervisor Crew, I heard on the second. Okay, back to the board.
Are we going to vote on that?
Oh, excuse me, you're correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, but again, back to the board.
Make a motion to approve the,
Recommendation.
yeah, the recommendation for modifying the county code and approving the amendment and the findings of the staff as well.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Next item is 5B, consideration of Planning Commission's recommendation to approve a variance from the rear and side yard setback requirements to allow construction of a new metal building. The request is for a reduction of the rear setback from 15 feet to 2 feet and a required side setback of 5 feet to 2 feet.
Right, hello, Ruslan Bratton with the Planning Department. So the applicant has requested this variance to allow for the construction of a approximate 432 square foot detached metal building within 2 feet of the rear and side property lines due to the location of the existing dwelling, septic system, and the size of the lot. Placing the proposed structure in the farthest corner ensures there's adequate space from the septic system. This notice of the initial public hearing for the Planning Commission was sent out on February 22nd to Building, Public Works, and Environmental Health for comments. And afterwards, in speaking with Environmental Health, they did have concerns that they had concerns about the distance from the septic tank itself. So they did let us know that when the time would come for the building permit, they would definitively need to know the distance from the septic system to ensure that there is adequate space. But the Planning Commission, following the public hearing on March 14th, recommended approval of the variance to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the conditions and findings below.
I think your Planning Commission minutes said it was unanimous, and actually you had one no vote.
Right, it was 4-1, I believe.
Right.
Yep, Mr. Curtis voted no.
And the reasoning behind that was of fire. You know, he was being able to get toward the building to do any of that, try to take care of it. That was his whole, thought about that process. Okay.
And I'm not sure if the applicant is here, if you have any questions.
Very patiently.
Do not do well speaking in public, so I'll do my best.
We don't do very well neither, so it's okay.
You're a real estate agent. You know how to talk to everybody.
That's different. That's so different for me. Anyways, I did write a letter with my application explaining my reasoning behind this. However, I wanted to add, we have been in our home since 2014, and the plan was to stay in it, a couple of years and move down the hill and sell it. But 2 teenagers and kids, life happens. We're still there here. It's almost 10 years later. And with the current market and even being a real estate agent, insurance, home costs, I don't foresee us moving in the near future. So this is kind of where we're at. I love my home. I love my neighborhood. But this has caused a hardship because, my husband, we currently pay for a shop in Jackson. We live in Mace Meadows. He has a Jeep, he has dirt bikes, he has toys, and there's nowhere to keep him at our house. And for when he wants to work on them or anything, he drives to Jackson, and he's never home. So maybe that's why we're still married, but, I would like him home, and I would like him to be able to feel he can do stuff around our house and have a place to do that. We've always had a pride in ownership of our home. Many people have told us we have the nicest home on our block, so anything that we do, and if this is approved, a shop, we would do anything that looks nice only to improve value to the neighborhood. And just in ending, this is, this year it's going to be 20 years married, so I would like to be able to give him this gift to have a place. So we would greatly appreciate this approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
And then he'll be closer to when you want to get him.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, back. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Back to the board.
Move to adopt the resolution approving the requested variance and adopt the condition and findings in the staff report.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It is now approved. So go make your husband happy. And that concludes our meeting.
Goodbye.